Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hi everyone, welcome to another video on the JV
Hey.
and Millie channel. Today we are going to be discussing the brand new Scooby Doo release, Trick or Treat Scooby Doo. So this is a spoiler-free video. We will be releasing one over the next 24 hours where we go into things a lot more in depth. But for now, you can hear our opinions completely spoiler-free if this movie hasn't yet got to you.
Yeah, no, of course, when we do say spoiler-free, what we basically mean is, like, obviously we're going to be discussing some elements of the movie, but they're pretty much what you saw in the trailers, along with our general thoughts and feelings about the movie and certain plot points without giving too much away. So, you know, if you've seen the trailer, you'll be okay to watch this video. If you want to stay away from absolutely everything, including the trailer, including everything, then you might want to come back to this video after seeing the movie yourself. But without further ado, we're going to get into it. Now, I guess we've never really had to be in a situation where we've dealt with a direct spoiler-free before, so we're not going to go into much of a plot summary here, except maybe summing up the fact that from the look of the trailers, we are set for a Scooby Doo movie set in Halloween. There's going to be some trick-or-treat hijinks and what appears to be ghoulish versions of the gang causing mayhem. So Millie, how do you want to tackle this?
I guess I'm just gonna kind of look over my notes and mention the things that I think can be mentioned, which first of all, animation, art style, great movie.
Yeah, so it was a bit jarring for me at the start. Like, when it first hit me, I will admit I thought this doesn't look as nice as, say, the Courage movie, doesn't look as nice as certainly, like, you know, the Camp Scare era, and it did grow on me. I never thought, like, I was used to it, but by the same token, because I wasn't used to it, there were moments where you saw simplistic backgrounds contrasted with good character design and the whole scope of the movie, where I thought, a part of me knows that if this was the de facto art style for all the Scooby Doo movies, I'd be sick of it. But in the moment, with it being a one-off, at least for now, I kind of felt like it served the movie's tone and the movie's vibe better than the other art style would have done.
Certainly, I mean,
like, it made it seem less factory produced and more, oh my gosh, this is brand new.
I think even something as extreme as the Be Cool art style would have fit with this movie's zaniness quite well.
Yeah, and I think it lends itself to that. I was almost thinking a bit of Be Cool. Like, there's sequences where the gang, because of the new art style, you know, before they were kind of confined to being realistic apart from some cartoony quirks such as, you know, running in thin air. But here they fully, like, use the art style to, you know, to go into a more wacky tone with it. So when the gang looks shocked, or when they, you know, Shaggy and Scooby, and this is in the trailer, you know, when they eat loads of candy, they completely, you know, inflate, a bit like, you know, how they did classically, like in stuff like The Witch's Ghost, but to a more extreme extent as well. So yeah.
I mean, we've touched on art style there, and I guess something else we can touch on, because it's not ultimately a spoiler, is the music. Now, we can't go in depth, but phenomenal. The title song, incredible. The chase song, perfect for the theme.
Now, bear in mind, this is, I think, a lot of my hype could be nostalgia, or not nostalgia, but, you know, hype. Like, oh my gosh, it's new, we've just seen it, so we're obviously more excited about the movie than, say, you know, if we were reviewing something that had been out for a while. I don't know. There seems to be a lot more excitement that we've got new content and that it's just out. But I want to say that this is probably the best Scooby-Doo music that we've had. Let me think back to the films that we've been... See, now, we did get good music with Courage in the opening titles and in the chase, the kind of montage-y chase. I love that music. But I think here we get, I think, what is more... You know what I mean? You'd always get this type of music from a classic early 2000s Scooby, or from a classic, what we would consider, you know, childhood nostalgic Scooby. I think it takes it back to basics.
I'm thinking Goblin
King
King kind of era for the last time we saw music this good in a chase song.
Like, obviously you don't want to give away too much. The chase song isn't what you'd expect. Now, if you went back to the What's New era, for example, it's exactly what you'd expect, which is why I love it, because I almost did feel nostalgic watching this movie, even though it's just out. I felt nostalgic going, oh my gosh, this reminds me of a Scooby movie that would have been made when I was just watching What's New Scooby Doo.
I mean, I think there's a reason for that. I think that's exactly what they wanted you to feel, again, staying spoiler free here, but as you see with a lot of things at the minute, from the new Ghostbusters to the new Spider-Man, fanfare is what it's all about in every sense of media making. It's a wave that's kind of swept over the entertainment industry over the last 2 years, and it's something that you've seen in the trailer is present with this movie, and it does pull that off. Like, if you had any reservations watching the trailer, like, are they touching on too much of what matters to people here, you know, original Scooby? They pull it off. Yeah,
like, there is a moment when nostalgic fanfare can get too much in movies. I can't think of a movie that's done that, but I'm sure, I mean, in a way, right?
I mean,
Ghostbusters Afterlife, very, very heavy on nostalgia. Almost, if you haven't watched the original, you might think differently about the movie. Whereas something, again, no spoilers even about this, but like the new Spider-Man, you know, manages to blend it perfectly. And I think this is another instance where it blends it perfectly, because the callbacks never feel gratuitous, like, oh my gosh, look what we're doing this exactly the same, but it feels like it all serves the plot. Maybe there's one instance which is like the very, well, not the very start, but towards the start they maybe get a bit on the verge of parody or parodying something that's come before, but I think it makes sense even then, story-wise. Like, it's almost used to contrast what was and then what is, so you kind of forgive it for that.
Yeah. Now, I'm gonna ask you a question.
I think I know where this is going.
And this is spoiler free. It's just a question. It's a loaded question, but it's a question. Can we discuss Velma, or is that spoilers?
I mean, I will say one thing, and I never thought I'd say it.
Well done, Warner Brothers.
But I know, well, even not only like what they do, but I think I owe someone an apology, and I think their name may be Kate Micucci, because...
Oh my god!
What?
Oh my god!
Did you not...
This is the first time it's registered in my head that was Kate Micucci.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Like, yeah.
I nearly saw then. Oh my god! How... Like, this is a genuine reaction. Like, this is the first time it's clicked in my head that this is Kate Micucci.
Like, I always said that my favourite Kate Micucci performance was Be Cool, but I think this has one-ups her, because they give us something to do that has nothing to do with whining about ghosts being real or not real, whatever, right? And that's not a spoiler, that's just something that fans haven't liked and they've listened, but they give her a new goal, a new narrative, and that's all I'm going to say in this video.
We're going to say a lot more in the next one.
A storyline that's her own, it feels true to her, but at the same time it also factors in, and honestly there wasn't one moment in this where I cringed because it was Kate Micucci's voice. There wasn't a moment where I was irritated by her. I was rooting for Velma from start to finish, and I don't think that's happened since 2002, if I'm being completely honest.
No, and I've got a couple of things to add on to that. Like, firstly, oh my gosh, Kate Micucci, may never say this again, but incredible. Like JB said, you feel nostalgia with this movie. I wasn't feeling like, oh, that's a new Velma.
Then maybe this sounds a bit like not being able to move on from an ex, but I think and maybe this is an insult to Kate Micucci, I don't know, but my favourite part about Kate Micucci in this is that it felt like having Mindy Cohn back in a way, that it just seemed like not Kate Micucci as Velma, it just seemed, oh yeah, I'm watching Velma.
Yes, you know? It didn't seem like anyone was trying to be Velma. It was just Velma.
She was there.
But hear me out here, and again, spoiler free, is this because this is the most honest Velma we've ever seen? Because
Well, look, here's the thing. There's going to be discussions about this, and because of who we are and the reputation we've built up being, you know, the kind of, we're the new thinking people, that we always like to think of Scooby doing something new, and we don't really cling to the old series the way purists do. And there's nothing wrong with being a purist, by the way. So there is always going to be a thing saying, oh, you only are praising Kate Micucci because of this agenda that you've got, or, you know, because you feel like this is going to upset that type of people. And to be honest, people can accuse me of that, and I invite them to, because it's kind of who I've built up, you know. But I think I would very much say that Kate Micucci does such an amazing performance in this, even without her main goals and her ambitions. I just think she tones down the high-pitchedness, and when she tries to be funny, she actually does pull it off. And it's like, well, you know, we always knew that Kate Micucci wasn't a hack. Like, she's not an irritating person, you know. She's a comedian. She's done stand-up comedy. I think she's even won some, like, awards for stuff. And I think she was able to bring that here, a bit like Frank Welker. Obviously, I do like how, you know, original Fred liked his, you know, his traps, but he wasn't obsessed with them. But Frank Welker, same person, same performance, had a whole different light when he was allowed to be a bit more funny, you know, with Mystery Incorporated. And I think with this Velma, that's not just trying to debunk things, but she's actually trying to create things. I think this is almost a new direction for Kate Micucci's Velma, which I think just serves it a lot better than what it was before.
I'm going to say this with the biggest respect to everybody that's ever worked on Scooby, but I think for me, this has been not the best writing of a plot, but the best writing of the characters, because everybody has their own story. Like, it's not just, this is what Shaggy and Scooby are going to do, and this is us lumping Fred, Daphne and Velma together. Every one of them has their own purpose for being there, which isn't always the case, and they also have their own agenda. Velma has never been given this light before, this character before, this kind of motive before, and it's really refreshing. Honestly, there's a moment at the end between Fred and Daphne, and that's all I'm going to say because it's spoiler free. But I think it's actually one of the most poignant moments that the two of them have ever shared. And
it's
because it's like
pure as well.
Yeah, like, it's not like your standard, oh, this is because, you know, Fred and Daphne love each other and all this kind of stuff. It's just a human bonding.
It's wholesome, dare I use the word. It is a wholesome moment. There's a lot of wholesome moments in this, actually. It's, you know, it's a feel-good movie. And that's what I think is special about it, at least now, right? Like, it's Halloween, and you'd expect certain things from Halloween, and I'm not convinced you get all of it, but at the same time you do. Like, okay, Fred says a line in this movie that I think sums it up. That's not what I expected, but it's completely what I expected. And that's so confusing, because this is absolutely not what I'd expect from a movie that comes out today. But it is a movie that I'd expect would come out back in our day, not to make us sound ancient. So
I'm gonna say
there's one thing that stings. Like, obviously, you know, say your thing, but there's one thing that I just thought of that kind of stinks in my opinion.
Okay, keep it fresh in your mind, because I'm just gonna lay on the positivity here. I think this is one of the best written does it class as direct to DVD?
Yeah, the DTV, yeah. Direct to video, direct to DVD.
I'm gonna say this is possibly the best written direct to TV, direct to video, whatever, Scooby Doo movie in the last 10 years. I think it was on that level. It was the best we've ever seen the gang work together, just their characters, the development. It was 100% there. I don't think there was a single thing missing. If you are a hardcore Scooby fan, there was so much fanfare back to the, you know, the originals, and just wholesome relationships between the gang, but also for like ultimately this movie takes a step forward that I think people have been calling out for the best part of 2 decades. And it's good to see that Warner Brothers really have taken this step. Ultimately, we've said a lot of bad things about Warner Brothers throughout our time doing this channel, from their poor marketing to them being archaic in that marketing approach, and also where they'll take things to. This has restored my faith in them temporarily.
Yeah, and I was just looking back at the DVD shelf, and honestly, I'm not gonna say that this is the best by a mile, because I do think personally for me it has been on a winning streak. I always say, like, if we came into Scooby at a different time, things would have been different. Like, I do like Happy Halloween Scooby Doo, but I want to say if that was the one that we first watched back, maybe we don't continue. If Return to Zombie Island, which I didn't think was too awful, if that was the first one we watched back, I don't say we continue. So I do think Scooby's been on a winning streak. I know that the first one we watched was Sword in the Scoob, and we did continue. I know that if Courage was the first one, I would have wanted to continue. And again, I know that if this one was the first one, I would have wanted to continue. I think the last 3, counting this, have been particularly good, in my opinion. But I do think that this, I think I prefer it to Courage. And I think I prefer it to Sword on the Scoob. But again, I don't want to definitely say that because we're just fresh off from seeing it. And I don't think we've ever done a review that's so fresh off from seeing it. Like, normally it has time to sit with us. And the one thing I don't... Okay, we'll do positives first. So I've praised Kate Micucci. Maybe I'll never do it again. Maybe this is a winning streak for her. Maybe she'll become the best Velma of all time.
Maybe if they stick with this narrative... I'm sorry to interrupt you. But one issue or one reservation I have is Scooby Doo's not known for its consistency. They can meet someone in one episode and not know them again in the next. I want them to continue with the... And also another issue and reservation I have here is we know that there's things shelved, let's say, like Crypto. And granted, Holiday Haunt, if that's been shelved and like it still could be released, that's when they're younger, so it's not as in effect. My reservation is if they've got stuff shelved, I'm scared they take a step back. When this has been such a step forward.
I don't know, it's a tricky one because I get what you're saying, but I don't necessarily think it has to continue in a cohesive plot, because
it doesn't, but I'm just saying, like,
and even if it isn't with the same character, it could just become cheap eventually. It could become a shtick, you know, like there's characters that you know that they're gonna do something, right? Like Brock, you don't know that reference point, but Brock, every time he goes into the Pokemon Center, you know he's gonna get like eyes for Nurse Joy, or like there's some characters that have catchphrases and stuff, and I don't want Velma's new goal to become that, like it's just a wacky thing that happens every time and goes nowhere. But as long as they keep to this of Velma thinking, what do I want, how do I proceed, versus I'm gonna try and debunk this, I'm gonna prove that this isn't real, and I'm gonna whine about this. As long as Velma's goal in the next Scooby movie could be, I want to help, you know, Shaggy find some more candy, right? It would be a bit weak, but if that was her goal as a good friend, then it's fine. So I don't know, it's a weird one with the future of Velma, but I think if Kate Micucci keeps up this performance, definitely, like,
I can't believe, like, I know my reaction seemed quite fake, but I honestly promise you it hadn't even clicked in my head that we were dealing with Kate Micucci.
Like, it's because we had so much time away. Like, I can't remember.
No, but I remember the first time coming back into Scooby and cringing. Do you remember the first time we heard her voice in Sword on the Scoob?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Like, it felt like your childhood had been destroyed in front of your face.
You know what would be interesting? Going back to watch Sword on the Scoob and wondering if it was performance or maybe we're getting used to it. That could be a factor. But I don't know. So there was Velma. The thing is, I think Shaggy and Scooby get the short end of the stick in terms of development, but then just keeping them consistent is good in and of itself, just because they're just fun characters in general. They don't really need much to do apart from be fun. And I think that's what they get here. They're just fun. Fred is interesting. It's not his usual goal. But I like Fred. And Daphne, like we've mentioned, like Daphne is always on point. But I think, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, I guess, look, we can't get too far into this. I'm just gonna like ask the question, JB. With this movie, do you feel tricked or do you feel treated?
I gotta say, the one thing I can say I don't like is the name. I don't have any alternate suggestions. I just don't think it sums up what the movie's about or what it is or the vibe of it. But I feel very much treated, and I can't go into really why. That'll be for the next part, but honestly, this is one of my favourite modern Scooby movies, if not my favourite. It's up there for me with Camp Scare, and I don't even know if that's considered modern now, but it's up there for me. It's up there. What about you? Do you feel tricked or treated, Millie?
I feel treated, and far more treated than I expected to. I think that they should bring the writers for this back. I would like to see what else they can do with the franchise, because I personally think that they've set the bar of where like Scooby can go.
They may have a dream team on their hands, because I did notice we've never seen the voice director in any other projects. I'm wondering if something behind the scenes with the new voice director changed something with Micucci.
I would like to say that if they keep this team around,
the writer, the voice director,
this could be an iconic era of Scooby movies.
Oh, I don't want to say the art style.
I just think there's something right here. Something right here that, honestly, some of modern Scooby's been missing. I guess by modern Scooby, I mean anything post What's New, because I remember like going back and reviewing some stuff and been disappointed. Like, I'm just trying to see, like, I mean, around the kind of, honestly, like perhaps Haunted Hollywood, Curse of the Speed Demon, Batman the Brave and the Bold, around that era, I genuinely thought Scooby was never going to get good again. Like, I remember recording Smash or Pass and passing about 10 movies in a row and just thinking it was never going to get good again. This is like showing that it really can be as good as it ever was. Like, I'm saying this team could bring back the golden, like, be the equivalent of a golden age Scooby era. Like, I'm talking like Cyber Chase era.
I don't have high hopes for that.
I do.
Because I know that there's been some leaked concept art of what appears to be the Crypto movie, a DC crossover or something.
Ugh.
And I don't see this team tackling that. So I don't know if this is going to be reviewed really well. Crypto might be reviewed slightly less, and Warner decides to grow some brains and think, okay, people like this a lot more than that. Let's get the writer on the phone. Let's get like the directors on the phone.
I'm gonna say Warner Brothers grew more than just brains to drop this movie. They did something revolutionary.
A few things dropped for sure, yeah.
And I would like to believe that there is some new brain in Scooby that's saying, look, let's change this a bit. Like, let's make this back as good as it used to be. That will talk them out of any more of these silly DC crossovers.
I just don't know who, because as far as I know, the main kind of brain behind all of it, like the Overlord who ticks all the boxes, is the same. We've got Sam Register here.
Maybe something's registered with him that what they were doing before is not working.
Register, yeah. Well, shout out Mr. Sam Register, like...
No, I think we could see Golden Age Scooby here. I'm excited about this, but we need to hope that, like I say, it looks like something's really changed, and I want it to stick that way. Like I say, no more DC crossovers. Let's build Scooby.
At least get the story writer and the teleplay writers consulting on the Crypto movie. Ideally have them write the next one.
Let's not have a Crypto movie.
I think it's too far into it to cancel it, and I don't want...
Scoob Holiday Haunt, you want to say it's too late to cancel stuff?
I think there's been enough cancels. I think there's been enough.
Until something is on the screen, according to Warner Brothers, it's not too late to cancel.
You know what sucks though? The fact that this is so good, and I'm sure Holiday Haunt would have been good. Imagine this in October and then Holiday Haunt in December. That would have been like 2 heavy hitters like, in one go.
I would never have had the holiday feeling so hard. Like, I'm feeling Halloween hard right now.
You're feeling Halloween hard?
Are you not feeling Halloween, like, in your heart?
I am rock Halloween hard. That's how... No, that's ridiculous. But yeah, you know what?
Definitely treated.
I am treated. I am treated. But I guess that's all for now, you know. Please do watch the movie. We've both recommended it. And the kind of next video will be not a deep dive. It'll just be a regular episode, essentially. Where we talk about everything in the movie. Again, I'm going to mark that appropriately, but please do be aware that that will be spoilers. We're going to point out that it's spoilers at the start of that.
Today we are going to be reviewing the brand new Scooby Doo movie, Trick or Treat Scooby Doo. Now, before we get into this, spoilers.
Before we get into the spoilers,
yeah, JB.
Oh yes, oh gosh, I was a bit thrown off there. So if you have not seen Trick or Treat Scooby Doo, then this video. We do recommend pausing this video, watching the movie, and then coming back and listening to this. However, if you're reaching for some Trick or Treat content and you do care about spoilers, we do have a non-spoiler video out, which I'll link in the description down below. But if you don't care about spoilers, then just listen to this anyway. You know, like, there's going to be spoilers here, full spoilers, nothing held back. So please, like, if you do care about spoilers, stop here. Stop in the name of love, because we're going to be all up in this. We're going to go to town. So.
Okay, so this is your last chance. 3, 2, 1. Spoiler time. Okay, JB. Tell me your thoughts on the opening mystery.
Honestly, I think it was kind of pants, but I don't think it needed to be anything special.
It was just there to serve a purpose. Get them into the movie, warm them up.
It was, we need an outfit to be analysed. Let's just have some fun with it. And it was some fun, like, it wasn't boring. Good chase scene, and it just served its purpose. Like, I think there's not much to it, but I did like how a lot of times they kind of rumble the villain's plan. Like in the Courage movie, they left before the clown really got unmasked because they were busy, and I think that that's fun. But here I think it's almost better that they weren't just sidetracked by something. It was a deeper purpose. Like, they were not just happening upon a mystery, they were actively going investigating, which I think is a cool vibe for Mystery Inc. That they're Mystery Inc. for a reason. They're not just unlucky kids that stumble upon villains. They're literal detectives at the start of this, which is great.
Certainly. Now, what do you think to this premise of the fact they want to track down the costume designer? Ultimately, I really like it, because do you know what we've done? I can't even tell you how many reviews we've done at this point. And a lot of the time, it comes down to the costumes aren't feasible. If you look at it realistically, we've said this so many times, like, that wouldn't have happened because of this. I'm gonna say it's a valid plot because it's a point that's been raised by many people.
I mean, it does draw into question the timeline. Not that you get too bogged down with the timeline, but they must be relatively fresh off these classic villains to care about, like, what's causing them. But then you've got the 10,000 Volt Ghost that was featured in the Scooby Doo show. So, you know, and again, an important thing to note about this is that it's not Crystal Cove. There's no Crystal Cove to be seen in this. It's Coolsville.
And I appreciate that.
So I think what we're dealing with in terms of that is 2 separate timelines, like people have theorized. Crystal Cove timeline, Coolsville timeline. This is following on from the classic Where Are You series and I guess the Scooby Doo show. So maybe this isn't even canon to all the, you know, the Sword and the Scoob stuff. I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's interesting, and I do like the concept because, again, it just gives them something to investigate rather than Mystery Machine rolls into anonymous location and stuff happens.
And I'm gonna say this movie serves very well with fanfare. So what was your thoughts on having that flashback sequence of the original series?
I thought it was really good, and the thing is, I thought I would have been blocked out because we've almost got used to treating that original series very recently as not a job, but as a task. Like, we need to watch this to make notes on it. We need to make a review on it, you know. And so I would have thought that any callbacks to that would have soured me almost, because going back to it, I don't think I had much fun reviewing, especially that first season. But realizing the legacy of it, looking back, you know, all these years later, and contrasting the two, it definitely did, you know, give me a lot of nostalgic vibes, which I wasn't expecting, because I didn't really watch the original show that much as a child. For
me, the big nostalgia kick is when we see the 1000-volt ghost costume light up.
Yes, because
that for me sparked something. Because
they did it exactly the same how it was done in the Scooby Doo show. Same animation, same movement, but it was done with, you almost didn't expect it. Like, someone was presented a new costume and you think, okay, that's a spooky costume, and then it's activated and you're like, oh wow, it's that. Like, I don't know, they just did it right. It almost felt like a cinematic movie in that scene, and in the whole opening, because we then find out that all that is a ruse, and once again, Mystery Inc. aren't just kind of, you know, accidental heroes in this. They're actively going out and solving mysteries. They're almost doing a sting operation at the start.
This is something I really like about Shaggy and Scooby's character in this moment, is you never think about them being the brains of the operation, but it's them that's trying to deceive the costume designer Coco here. They're the one that's putting on the act, and it also shows greater awareness for what's going on, because normally it's just they see the villain and they're scared, but here they can actually relate and understand that the villain's somebody who normally has some kind of financial investment in land, and they're trying to get the land reduced, and it just shows them to be a bit more developed than we normally see. I found it really refreshing and genuinely really enjoyed this opening. The one thing that I didn't like, which goes on to be rectified later and we will get to that, but it's a bit when Daphne's just like, oh, what's my part in this? I don't do anything, and it's kind of like, oh, please tell me we're not still stuck here.
Yeah, like, I was impressed because, like you say, like, the word development is the perfect word, because Shaggy and Scooby aren't changed at all. They're very much exactly who they've always been, and even down to, I think, dressing up as this fake person, because every time there's always, like, it's Shaggy and Scooby, you know, be the bait. Shaggy and Scooby lure the villain out so we can trap them, and that's exactly what they're doing here, but smarter. Like, this isn't just a case of let's make a load of noise and get the villain to chase us so Fred can net the villain. It's, okay, here's a disguise, here's a plan, you're still the bait, you're still, you know, the kind of wiggly worm at the end of the hook for the villain, but it's done like a spy movie or like a real detective show. So I just like how they didn't have to change their role in the plan to make it a smarter plan. So I'm very happy. Yeah,
and ultimately all this was the guys for the gang to meet up with the costume designer Coco. So, JB, Velma meets Coco.
Velma does meet Coco.
Tell us.
So,
ultimately, Velma seems impressed with what she sees.
See, I don't want to say that because the Scooby series has dipped around this so much.
Okay, so
I don't want to. Velma,
let me say this then, okay?
Has a lesbian crush on Coco Diablo.
Okay, hear me out here. I think they developed this well within the episode because, honestly, initially, it isn't 100% set out. What's set out is she likes the glasses, she likes the hair, she likes the turtleneck. And it's like, okay, Warner Brothers have always done little like indications and little clues and hints that Velma may be capable of developing a crush for a female. And it's never been confirmed, and it wasn't in this initial scene. It was merely confirmed that there was elements that she admired.
Yeah.
But for anybody who has been backing that, you know, we start to see this side of Velma, this bit will have got you. Like, this will have got you invested in this movie a bit more. But
you got to be impressed with the willingness to dive into it, because honestly, they could have included that scene and that's it. We didn't need any more. Now, there's a word for it that I don't know that I'm allowed to say it, so I'm not going to say it. There's a phrase about the LGBTQ plus community, which starts with the Q word, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but they refer to the act of teasing someone with this type of character development as Q word baiting. Now, characters like Will Byers, you know, Stranger Things, is always accused of it because you get enough hints that he does have a crush on Mike, but so much so that it doesn't confirm it. So a lot of people have become cynical, like they're just using that implication to score points without committing to it, you know, socially and, you know, for that appeasement.
Well,
whereas here, they could do that.
As we get into the episode, let's see if they have just Q-baited it.
But they could have done that, and this is what I'm saying. They could have stopped there. Many people would probably want them to have stopped there. But,
most people would have expected them to stop there.
I expected that to be it, because I will admit I did see that clip on Twitter before watching the movie, and I was like, okay, this is going to upset a lot of the PRS, but I was not expecting it to continue. So, like Millie said, it might be nothing at this point. It could just be like you admire someone.
One thing I would like to say I admire as well is all this is before the titles. We nearly get a full episode of Scooby before the titles, because at this point JB was like, are we missing something? And no, because the titles start, and honestly, I think they're done exceptionally.
Yeah, it fits in with the Guess Who style. What they do is they parody the original Scooby Doo Where Are You theme tune in the same way that Guess Who does. But this is, I think, better than the Guess Who titles.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Because it is parody. It isn't lyrically genius. It doesn't sound better than the original or more iconic at all. But they use it as a way of saying, like, this is the nostalgic feel that the gang's feeling, except there's something not quite right about it. They miss solving all the mysteries, like, and they use the kind of words to describe how the vibe is, and I like it a lot.
For me, it's like the reverse Where Are You intro, because this is about them not having a mystery to solve as opposed to having a mystery. It's great, and I also like how they use it to pass the year, because ultimately you're a year later at the end of it. So it really sets the scene of the gang's life without mysteries. Ultimately, they're quite bored. However, it's coming up to Halloween, and Shaggy and Scooby are really excited that they're going to be able to enjoy themselves. So we see this incredibly zany sequence where they're going as each other for Halloween. They find a house of candy, things turn incredible colours, and ultimately it's revealed to be a dream.
I want to say we called this in our reaction, because when we were looking at the video, we saw Shaggy and Scooby in classic monster outfits, in pumpkin outfits, and dressed up as each other. I think we called it spanning over at least a few years, or there being some type of dream sequence. So I think we called this. Not like it was a massive gotcha, but I think it's cool that we picked up on that.
Yeah. Ultimately, again, I like this sequence. It's building things up nicely. It's progressing the story over time. So Shaggy and Scooby wake up. They plan their costumes for Halloween, for trick-or-treating. And that's when the gang arrive outside in the mystery machine to pick them up. Shaggy and Scooby thinks that, you know, it's to go trick-or-treating early, but of course there's some hijinks to happen before that. So as they're driving along, Fred stops the mystery machine near a well and goes to wish for a mystery, which I think is really nice. It shows some development from his side. I feel like, you know, it shows to him how much the mysteries matter to him individually, not just them as a gang and their dynamic, but also just kind of him.
Yeah, I think I can see some criticism being it sets the gang up as, or at least Fred, it sets Fred up as somewhat of an adrenaline junkie that wants something to happen so he can do something, and not he's just happy that no one needs help. But I think it's just Fred being quirky, you know, like it's funny, it's entertaining. You can make that argument, but, you know, it's fine.
So ultimately, the gang kind of see what's going on and they want to make Fred feel better. So they agree to his concept of creating a promo booth for Mystery Inc. to make people aware of what they do to hopefully attract more mysteries. So as they're setting things up at the fair, Shaggy and Scooby go to find more, like, kind of clients, really. And as they do, they go apple bobbing, and this is where we see the ghost, the villain of this episode. Now, my initial thoughts, they look pretty horrific.
Yeah, they look scarier than I thought they would have gone. Especially, like, I think the impact almost of how scary they look was taken away from the trailers, just because you don't get the initial, oh my gosh, look at them, it's okay, this is the villains we're gonna get, we've seen them before from the trailer. But they do such a good job translating them into evil versions of the gang in that they're so distinct. Like, they're not just evil Shaggy, evil Daphne. It's almost like an alternate take on Daphne if she was evil. Like, they don't just reskin them. They kind of do a take on almost what they would have worn in Edwardian times, except they also happen to be like zombies as well.
At the minute, we've only seen the Fred one, and one thing that I think makes the villain here more intimidating is quite often it's about land, it's about money. Whereas this villain says directly, I'm here for you, Mr. Ink, before blowing up the mystery machine. That hit hard, no?
Yeah. I think it seems more personal. Like, it isn't just because, again, when you're dealing with like a Scooby Doo land plot, you're expecting it to be in a building, in a fair, on tangible land, like something that's desirable. Whereas here it's like, I guess if someone wants to buy some grass for cheap, like obviously land's valuable, but like it's just being used for like a carnival at the moment. I'm sure there's some type of legitimate offer that you can make.
Yeah,
so it does seem more personal.
I mean, that's the thing. Normally you have the ghost giving them a chance saying, go away, leave this place now.
Go away.
Whereas this is just instantly, I'm here for you, Mr. Ink. And it's like, oh, they can't run. So they go to the prison where they are reacquainted with everybody who they have put behind bars. Everybody that hates Mystery Inc. The warden, however, is a huge fan. And it is at this point they are reunited with Coco, where Velma admits to Daphne that she has a crush on Coco.
Which, again, that's like
breaking for Warner Brothers.
And this is like what you have to understand about this isn't just like, oh god. And here's the thing, right? I am not one for making things overly, and this isn't what they've done here in my opinion. I'm not one for making things overly woke, overly let's, you know, appease the millennials. I think one of the more ridiculous stages of like a celebrity doing that is when J.K. Rowling went through that phase of going, you know, this character that was in this one scene, that was a Jewish person. You know, Dumbledore, even though it was never implied in any of the source material, Dumbledore's gay. Like, yes, you can make Dumbledore gay, that's fine. But it's just the revisionism of, look how progressive I am in hindsight. I'm not down for that.
But then, isn't she the same person who said that she disagreed with, like...
Yeah, well, I think she's kind of gone a bit mad. But regardless of her, like, I just don't like the revisionism of, let us score points after the fact, and I think this movie is going to be accused of doing that. And by no means am I a Scooby expert, but I know enough to know that this was the original plan for the first live action movie 20 years ago. I mean, ultimately, and in Mystery Incorporated like 10 years ago.
Ultimately, as you say, it is clear as day in Mystery Incorporated to anybody who doesn't try and turn a blind eye. A lot of people are in denial about stuff like this, and so they do turn a blind eye. They try not to acknowledge it, they try not to admit it. I think people did that with Mystery Incorporated, but to anybody seeing it objectively, it was clear as day that this is what they were aiming for.
Yeah, this isn't just hashtag let's get points from Generation TikTok. This has been like part of Velma's background for 20 plus years at this point.
Yeah, like you say, 20 years. Like 20 years ago, there was a scene recorded for Velma to have her first kiss with Daphne. And like, if you rewatch the 2002 movie and Daphne and Velma switch back souls, you'll see neither one of them appear on the screen when this happens, because they had to cut that at the last minute because Warner Brothers weren't brave enough to do it then. They weren't brave enough to do it in Mystery Incorporated.
Even though that's what the creators wanted, what Mitch Watson told us in the interview that we did with him, that was the plan that he and Tony Savoni got, and they weren't allowed to go all the way with it. So again, they're gonna be accused of, oh, everything has to be woke nowadays, but it's just
they've been trying to do this for 20 years, and it's the first time they have had the guts to do it.
And I want to say that this is proof, like, yes, things may seem more woke nowadays. I will admit there's more LGBTQ plus things, there's more coloured people going into the roles that you would typically assume of being white roles. But it's like, when you think about the Velma thing that's been in production for 20 years, 21 years more, this perhaps is the first time that, say, 30-year long or 20-year long or even like 10-year long plans have been able to go through. So just think, for all things might seem like they're happening all of a sudden now, a lot of these things have been in the works for a while, and it's like, imagine that, shot 21 years ago for the first live action movie. Some people watching this may not even be 21 years old, so
there's a lot of people who we've spoken to that have written for Velma who are going to be celebrating today.
Morgan Baden, who wrote the Daphne and Velma books, Velma had a crush on Thorn.
Wasn't it one of the Hex girls had a crush on Velma? Velma had a crush on Fred.
Did she?
Yeah.
Well, there's stuff going on.
Like, this is something that's been explored by many people and that's been shut down in many cases as well. Ultimately, lots of people have heroed this, a lot of people have championed this, and a lot of people have tried to bring this in sooner. And ultimately, I guess, for a lot of people, it's a big celebration.
I will say this, though. I don't want, and I didn't want, a Velma and Coco relationship. I didn't want the relationship drama, and I don't even want Velma to go to those lengths, because at the unless it's part of another show like Mystery Incorporated. If they do Mystery Incorporated season 3, 100% I want to see a hot dog water relationship and how that progresses. But for these like straight to video movies, I don't think it needs to be bogged down with stuff like this. Like, again, maybe this Velma headcanon has been a thing for a while, but equally so has Fred and Daphne, and they've yet to explore a relationship in these direct-to-video movies, apart from maybe Stage Fright, and that was just a fleeting thing, then it went nowhere. So, again, I think it should be considered part of Velma's headcanon now, but I don't want these movies to be bogged down with relationship drama from Velma and Coco, from Fred and Daphne, from, you know, anyone. So,
it wasn't about Velma having a relationship.
It was just,
it's purely about Warner Brothers allowing it and accepting it, because it's been there for 20 years.
Like, Fred had a crush on the camp counselor Jessica from Camp Scare. That's fine. Velma can have a crush on Coco, and that's also fine. So that's, like, I think, fun.
Yeah, like, they've had no issue with, like you say, giving Fred all these elaborate crushes, and Daphne all these ridiculous eligible bachelors, let's say, eligible partners, shall we say.
I mean, there's gonna be people that are angry at this but are okay with what I consider a completely inappropriate thing with Daphne in the Kiss movie. But yeah, that I think is a bit dodgy, I will admit. But you know,
so ultimately the gang end up at the library, where we see the chase song of the Ballroom Blitz.
La Biblioteca.
This is
mad.
Peak Halloween.
How did they do this? Like,
this is how
did they do this? This is actually incredible, because, like, I was expecting like a funny, like a good song, right? You expect chase songs at this point. And you know, the opposite of Fair is Fun was in Courage the Cowardly Dog, an original song, I think. And I loved it. I was expecting either an original song for this or just like an orchestrated score, which I would have enjoyed as well. But to come out guns blazing with Ballroom Blitz, like,
this is quite high budget for
that's ridiculous.
Scooby, you know?
Yeah, ridiculous.
It was amazing, is what it was. And this is where we first see
Ballroom
the entire gang as ghosts.
Ballroom Blitz. Oh, and the scene where Daphne's kind of mirroring with her. Oh, and they made Daphne thick in this movie.
Oh, God.
Hella thick. This art style, oh man. But yeah, it's so fun. One of my favourite chase scenes of modern Scooby. In fact, it might even be my favourite, apart from maybe some from Be Cool. But, oh, Ballroom Blitz. That's like instantly like plus points.
So this is where Coco says, look, I think I can identify who it was. And they go and see the Dracula guy from the start, who he's just sad.
He's just sad.
It's sad. And he, you know, and he's trying to tell everybody he's been doing really well. and he had this really big order to the prison, at which point...
Trevor Gloom's Boutique of Doom.
At which point Coco leaves, and Dracula guy helps them make a new car. Now, from seeing this on the initial trailer and everything, my kind of thoughts were, okay, this is the mystery machine for the ghost gang.
Yeah, and again, like with Happy Halloween, I was imagining a drawn-out 10-minute segment, no disrespect to Happy Halloween, but just Mystery Machine versus what I thought was going to be called the Monstery Machine. And it was going to be a chase sequence. And I don't think what they do here is masterful, but it does give us time for another really nice song. I don't know the name of it, I don't know if it's original to this movie, but I love the song and I love the montage. I think cynically though, if you know, we said this, like I loved watching all the Monster of Mexico music sequence when they happened, but in hindsight reviewing it, we were like, oh, this is clearly just to boost runtime. And maybe if we were reviewing this, like say if we were introduced back into Scooby nostalgia 5 years from now, and we were reviewing this as part of a list, maybe we would have gone, okay, this is just dragging out time. But I like the moment, and they did need a new car, so it makes sense. I just like it. I don't know. I've got nothing bad to say about it. I'm very happy.
And ultimately, this new car is needed to take the gang up to the warehouse, where it is revealed that the ghouls were robots, and Coco comes out from the shadows to confess it was her.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say something that I don't think I told you. And people listening will know now because this is a spoiler one. So there was a clip released not ages ago, like a week and a half ago, and I tried to react to it. I recorded a reaction to it. It was blocked the first time, and I couldn't find a way to make it like available everywhere and kind of in the clear the second time. It was from the sequence of just after Coco's confession all the way up until unmasking that kind of weird guy that was with the cat.
Yeah, I remember.
Did you see it?
Yeah, you showed me.
Oh, I didn't think I showed it to you. Huh. And so...
You knew.
And I was like, okay, this is going to be at the start. This is going to be a fake out reveal. And it wasn't. Like, for all the main part about this movie wasn't, oh, who did it? Like, this is the amazing reveal. It's more about the ride and what the characters learn. Surprisingly enough for a direct-to-video movie again. But it's about what the characters learn. But the fact that they gave away the villain in a clip, I think, well, why? Like...
Do you think they intended for that clip to be released? Was it a leak thing?
It must have been, but it was watermarked from the official logo. Like,
but at the same time,
I'm disappointed, you know. Like, I did guess it. Well, obviously, you know, when I knew who it was, I was going, okay, how do we get there? And so when the guard was like, oh, I developed this electric thing myself, I was like, okay, he's clever. So I'm guessing what we see is robotics. So yeah, you know what? It doesn't take a genius to figure out. But I'm just saying, if I was a kid that saw that clip, and obviously the kids like the unmasking and stuff, I would have been a bit gutted going into it.
Yeah, but this is about more than the unmasking, ultimately. As you say,
there's a lot of fun that they could have had. Like, even making the mystery machine, the monstery machine, I will call it the monstery machine, would have been a cool clip. The chase, some of the chase scene would have been a cool clip. I don't think it had to be the reveal, but like you say, it's about more than that.
Yeah, it is, because ultimately, like you say, it is revealed that it was the warden, not Coco. And then they accidentally let all the inmates out of the prison, so all the villains that Mystery Inc. have kidnapped are now, have captured, are now on the loose. So here is where everybody teams up. And the gang dress up as the original villains. And can it just be said that Daphne's space kook laugh is on point?
I'm wondering how much of that was stock from Don Messick, or if they got Grey DeLisle to do the laugh. And this is the thing, right? This reminds me of one of my favourite Halloween movies or horror movies of all time, Cabin in the Woods. all the villains getting released. And I expected it to be more of a situation where they would all, you know, kind of costume up and you'd get like an army of past villains wreaking havoc. They only really have time and possibly budget for a handful, but I think what we do get is fantastic. Like, the only one that really gets to show off their powers is the ghost clown who hypnotizes some kids and then Shaggy hypnotizes them back. I think it would have been cool to imagine a world where all of the characters in costume were just doing their thing, but I think what we get is fantastic. It's the perfect blend between nostalgia and just what's like new things as well.
Isn't it amazing how they do it, where like you've got the Black Knight taking down Mr. Wickles, and like the way they've paired it up, I don't know, I just really
and it's so true to form as well. Like, I don't know if you heard, but when Velma Cutler like emerges from the pool, they play like the same sound effect that they played in like the 1969 show. They kind of and it was just it's just fantastic. Like, it's stupid for all purpose. Like, there's nothing clever, there's nothing masterful that there is to be solved, but it's what Scooby's meant to be. It's just a 10-minute conclusion of pure fun, pure Halloween costume goodness, which is just, it's fun. It's really fun.
And then, of course, to save the day, in comes the 10,000 volt ghost, which is Coco.
And that was set up from the start.
Oh my gosh, how cool was that scene where the cat was dressed up as the miner as well?
Yeah, Miner 49er. So that would have been...
Oh my god.
That would have been Hank then, wouldn't it? Kind of knocking on that door.
And all of the, you know, inmates are recaptured.
I will say,
together.
Missed opportunity not having Sia and Saw voicing Hank. That would have been cool.
What's your thoughts on, so everyone's been captured, they're going back to jail, and you get your last scene between Velma and Coco, and Velma's glasses melt and she's like, my glasses, where's my glasses?
I will admit, because of what we've seen, again, they could have stopped with the initial encounter. I was expecting a kiss, and I'm not saying I really wanted them to have one, but I was expecting it, and I was a bit thrown off that they didn't. Like, at the very least, I was expecting Coco kisses Velma on the cheek, Velma blushes, and the glasses melt away. But, you know, it's not how it turned out. It was just cute.
It's not, but it's still
it was really
a
cute.
million steps forward.
Seeing Velma, like, explore that, and it was funny as well, the fact that the glasses melt away, and then that leads on to what you'd expect from Velma losing her glasses. Like, it was just a lot of fun.
It was.
And Shaggy and Scooby get their candy.
Yes, but above all of that, Daphne and Fred have a chat, because Daphne's mentioned a couple of times about what her position is in Mystery Inc. And it's kind of a bit sad. And she turns around to Fred and says, you know what, Fred, I think like I should be the leader now. And he said that she's always been the leader of Mystery Inc. And goes on to list all the qualities that we've actually learned to appreciate Daphne for over the years. But what's really interesting, and one reason why I think this is particularly nice at this stage, is because this movie calls back to the first series quite a lot. And having rewatched that recently, there's a lot of digs at Daphne, like Danger Prone Daphne. Oh, Daphne's been kidnapped again. And so to call back to the original and almost remedy one of the mistakes they made there, which is the treatment of Daphne, and actually applauding all the things that she's come to be known for, about staying calm, about being the people person, and Fred just saying you're the leader of Mystery Inc. For me, like, you know, we've seen like moments in Is It Stage Fright or something where Daphne and Fred have a like few like romantic connections. For me, this one moment without any romance involved is actually far more emotional than when they've been close to kissing. Or
I agree.
Like, this moment is much more poignant. Like,
they just seem like best friends. And I think you don't often see that with them. They always split off together, but they've never just shown to have that kind of relationship. And I think it's the best type that they could have, really, at this stage.
But one thing that I really like is that they've dialed the romance back between Fred and Daphne in this one, because quite often any of the romances that Velma's ever tried to establish have been outshone by Fred and Daphne. Whereas here they've really toned them two back, built up this beautiful friends thing, like that moment wasn't the root of any romantic connection or chemistry. It was just purely based on friendship and emotion.
Well, if you think as well, this is the first time that Velma's had a crush on someone in a Scooby movie, like an animated one, and they've not ended up being the villain. Like, you had it with Ben Ravencroft, you had it with the pervert ranger from Camp Scare, Windsor in Legend of the Phantasaur. Every time Velma kind of gets a crush on someone in these movies, they're the ultimate villain. And obviously Coco's got a bit of a shady past, but, you know, it's kind of the first time that they've not ended badly, which is fun.
The one thing I will say is this movie ends quite oddly with the chaotic laughing. Like, it's kind of horror movie laughing, and then we see the eye.
Oh, but I like that though, because there was nothing that people knew or that assumed that was going to be mysterious about it, but the fact that it almost reminded me of like a classic Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode. Like, it wasn't just look at this could have been real. It was just, now here's a bit of like mild shock horror. I think that was just perfect for it. Okay,
so JB, that kind of concludes on the episode. Do you feel tricked or treated?
Okay, so we've given our verdict before, but I think now we've kind of analysed it, and again, you know, people...
I'd recommend going back to see the first video as well, if you've not, because for all it's like spoiler free, it's not just a spoiler free clip. That was our initial reaction.
It's the foundation as well.
We were 10 minutes out of watching this for the first time when we did that. There's so many things we were reacting to for the first time there. It's worth seeing.
I'm just a bit worried, and I don't know why, because this is our thoughts. We shouldn't worry about other people's thoughts. But because of what they do with Velma in this, I am worried that this is going to divide people, and that there's going to be just toxic crap going on Twitter. But, you know, like,
Twitter is not going to look pretty. And bearing in mind, JB, that this has only just been released with us, so it's still 8 hours away from hitting America.
Yeah.
Twitter's not going to be the place to be in the morning. Oh wait, well this will be going out tomorrow night, so by now, Twitter's not going to be the place to be. Because it is going to split opinions. Like, I will openly admit that I was disgraced with some people after seeing the new Buzz Lightyear movie. When they, you know, so many people were like, it was disgusting. I can't believe they were letting my children see that. And I went to see it and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what is everybody getting so angry about? So there was 2 women that had like one little kiss in a movie, and you're crying that your children have been allowed to see that? Like,
but I'll say this, right? I think it's healthy, right? Now, people... The one thing that really annoys me is when I see this stuff happening and the kind of comments like, oh, they're coming after our kids, they're like corrupting our kids, and it's like, if they want to do that, they're going to do it anyway. And it's like thinking me with 2002, right? I was eased into like, why am I feeling this way? Why is it having this effect? And you can explore things at your own pace, like you might not even realise it until viewing 5 or 10, right? And you can explore things at your own pace with something that is ultimately safe, right? Like, you know, there's nothing explicit in the movie, there's nothing rude in the movie, it is a family-friendly film, versus what unfortunately a lot of kids happen nowadays. They stumble upon a genuinely inappropriate, rude website, and a lot of times for kids, that's unfortunately, you know, their first experience with it. And it's like, what a horrible, traumatic way to realise that you are this way, or that you can feel a certain way. Like, that's not a healthy way to explore who you are as a person. So if it is something like this, then good, you know, great. Like, let them realise at their own rate, this is a healthy way for kids, and, you know, even, you know, people older than that to realise, maybe this explains why I'm having these thoughts, you know, or maybe not, you know, maybe not.
Or even just where their friends are coming from, if the friends are, or just socially acceptance in general, understanding other people. Because ultimately, if you're completely shielded from something, it means when it hits you eventually, it's just going to hit you harder.
Yeah. But again, this is as far as I want this to go in a movie. in a directed video movie. Maybe that's controversial. Maybe people are going to say, oh, why don't you want it to happen? Like, you know what, I just don't. You only get like so long with the characters for a movie. I don't want it to be bogged down with drama of any type.
Well,
really.
like you said, you wouldn't have been completely against them kissing at the end.
No.
But like you said, you don't want it to be a permanent relationship, because if they, you know, make it Velma's, this is gonna, please don't take this word the way it sounds. If they want to make that Velma's gimmick that she's going to be in a relationship throughout the episode, that ties her away from the gang.
Or make it mean something.
They could then, you know, once they then feel it's appropriate to reignite the Daphne and Fred relationship, that's then separated them off in a different arc. And then Shaggy and Scooby are left on their own. And then it's almost like, I don't know, kind of 2002 vibes when it went wrong at the start. But all of a sudden everyone's really quite distant.
Yeah. I think it will mean the world to a lot of people, this, and good, you know, like, it just makes people feel heard. And again, I think that's all it needs to do. If it was season 3 Mystery Incorporated, honestly, I wouldn't mind a whole subplot about Velma and hot dog water, and I just feel like they've handled it perfectly here, like, and just the validation, after all these years, finally, canonically, we have a Velma that can express herself, and that's just, I don't know, I like it. I like it a lot.
Well done, Warner Brothers, you finally got that.
But again, kind of hopping off the kind of like people's perception of me just being this SJW, like, if the Velma series, the new series coming out, Mindy Kaling, is awful, genuinely, I think I'll have the worst to say about it than anyone, so keep an eye out for that.
We've said some things about Velma in the past. Like, we are not like just
Velma simps.
Yeah.
If someone accuses me of being a Velma simp in the comments, I think that'll kind of solidify the lack of research.
Like I said, go back and watch the initial reaction, because when we remembered who the voice of Velma was, there was shock.
Oh yeah, there was shock and horror, but yeah, nothing. Okay, I'm gonna try and fault this movie quickly. Again, just the title's kind of generic. That's it, and I don't have any better suggestions. That's kind of it. Something else I would have preferred the villain Scooby dressed up as would have been more recognizable. I think Gator Gull would have been a better option. For all they're not iconic by any means, they are more recognizable from the cyber chase.
But it was calling back to the start of the movie.
Yeah. So, I guess that concludes the latest Scooby Doo movie. Like, I had a lot of fun with this. If you guys have seen Trick or Treat, which you should have if you're watching this, then please comment down below what you'd give it out of 10, or if it tricked you or treated you. That's the kind of thing we're kind of running with at the moment. So yeah, if you do want to see more reviews like this, then please like, comment, and subscribe. I will say, we may or may not have some Trick or Treat themed interviews in the works, so subscribe to that, stay hyped, and guess who in the comment section down below. So yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe.
JB and Millie.